Hi, my name is Kate Klein, and this is my video blog on current issues regarding persons with disabilities. Today, I'd like to talk to you about Oscar Pistorius. As you may or may not know, Oscar Pistorius is an Olympic athlete. He was born without fibulas in either leg. Therefore, just before his first birthday, his parents made the decision to perform a below the knee amputation. Pistorius grew up with prosthetics and was quite capable of ambulating around his environment, so much so that he went on to become a great runner and sprinter. He was so good, in fact, that he had the potential to compete in the Olympic Athlete Games. When he went to do so, however, he was told that he must compete as a para-Olympic athlete, those Olympic Games that are reserved for persons with disabilities. Um, Oscar Pistorius fought and advocated for his right to be seen not as a person with a disability, but as an athlete, an Olympic athlete at that, one that was whole in body and stature. Ultimately, he went on to win this fight, and he actually medaled in the games as a runner and sprinter. You may have heard of him as the quote, Blade Runner. Um, Oscar Pistorius went on to earn great celebrity and fame in his home country of South Africa. He even dated a beautiful model. Her name was Reva Steenkamp. On Valentine's Day of 2013, Oscar Pistorius shot and killed his girlfriend in his home. She was in the bathroom behind a closed door. He went on to go to face murder charges. He never denied that he shot her, but he indicated that he didn't know it was her behind that door and that he shot through the door thinking that it was an intruder. Last year, he was found guilty of culpable homicide. In the United States, that verdict is akin to manslaughter. In South Africa, where Oscar Pistorius lives, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison with credit for time served while he was awaiting trial and sentencing. Under South African law, Oscar Pistorius can be released to spend part of his sentence at home on house arrest. Now, as you might have imagined, Oscar Pistorius is a very wealthy man and he lives in a home that many of us would envy. Therefore, many people, including Reva Steenkamp's family, felt that his sentence to be at home on house arrest was not, in fact, justice. Reva Steenkamp's parents have fought to appeal the verdict, and they've actually won the right and will do so on November 3rd with prosecutors. They will go for a murder conviction. The difference between murder and culpable homicide would indicate that Oscar Pistorius indeed knew that Reva Steenkamp was behind that bathroom door and that he intentionally aimed to shoot and kill her. Now, it's important to know that there was a history of domestic violence in their relationship, and Oscar Pistorius had previous charges for both wielding and shooting a firearm in public. As a disability advocate, personally, it's interesting to me to note that Oscar Pistorius' defense in his murder trial was that he could not be held to a standard of a, quote, reasonable man because he is a person with a disability, has celebrity status, and frequently felt threatened and paranoid. Therefore, this same man that previously fought for his right to compete as an athlete in the Olympic Games, not in the Paralympic Games, and not to be seen as a person with a disability, is now stating that he cannot be seen as a, quote, average whole man. The fact that this argument worked and that he wasn't found guilty of murder is concerning to me as a disability advocate because it says to Oscar Pistorius, Reva Steenkamp's family, the people of South Africa, and the world that are watching that people with disabilities indeed cannot be seen as, quote, reasonable, and that they are at times weak, vulnerable, and threatened. I find myself wondering, what does this even mean? It's counterintuitive to what I teach my students. Is this even accurate? Some people with disabilities might agree. However, does that mean that they can shoot when they feel vulnerable? This case sets legal precedents and the outcome impacts the disability community. How people with disabilities are meant to see persons with disabilities, and the non-disabled community in regards to safety or perceived threat. As I mentioned, Reva Steenkamp's family won the right to appeal the culpable homicide conviction and will return to court on November 3rd to seek a verdict of murder. I encourage any rehabilitation counseling student, rehabilitation counselor, disability advocate, or person with a disability to educate themselves about this event. It has global implications for the treatment of people with disabilities. Furthermore, in the past 48 hours, Oscar Pistorius was set to be released to home to serve time. However, the parole board met and they denied his release, stating that he must undergo psychotherapy to deal with the events of that day on February 14th of 2013. Oscar Pistorius is said to be broken and, quote, living a nightmare because he has not been released back home to serve out his time. Gee, it kind of seems to me like the South African justice system is reneging on their original ruling and perhaps second guessing themselves. It's important to note that there was no jury of 12 because this is in South Africa and only one judge made this decision in ruling. I wonder if that gives Reeva Steenkamp's family justice that he hasn't been released to home. Probably not, because the verdicts have very different meanings in terms of fault, blame, and, of course, guilt. Stay tuned. I know I will. I encourage you to ask yourself, how will this story shape and mold the attitudes towards persons with disabilities on a global level? Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kate Klein, and this is my video blog on current events regarding persons with disabilities.